Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Take Your Shot podcast. I'm your host, Joshua Gitman, and we are just rolling through things here on this marvelous Monday as somehow, someway, the Boston Celtics find a way to win game two despite all that they did to try to lose that basketball game. And now they take a commanding 2-0 series lead in the NBA Finals and are only 2 wins away from hosting up that Larry O'Brien trophy and getting banner number 18 in TD Garden. So let's talk about the game. The Boston Celtics, of course, despite, as I mentioned, everything that went wrong, especially the shooting, found a way to win this basketball game. And first, we're going to discuss how they won this basketball game, for what little they did to win this basketball game. Then we'll move on to, of course, why they should have lost this basketball game. First, let me start with an adjustment that Joe Mazzulla made that was quite interesting on defense. He decided to go in this game with Derek White on Kyrie Irving. Despite Kyrie Irving having a poor performance and the great defense of Drew Holiday in that particular contest in game one, Drew Holiday played a perfect game on Kyrie Irving. 12 points, awful shooting for Kyrie Irving. In my mind, I'm saying there is no way that Joe Mazzulla should switch this matchup. And when I was looking at it, I'm like, why is Derek White on Kyrie Irving? I just did not understand why Drew Holiday was put off to the side, guarding Derek Jones instead of guarding Kyrie Irving. I did not understand that move. Yet, Derek White found a way to do the same exact thing that Drew Holiday did. I think Drew Holiday played a little bit of a better game, but Kyrie Irving still struggled mightily. Kyrie Irving, when Dallas needed him, he wasn't there, and you've got to give credit to the Celtics defense for that. And I was a little bit shocked. I know Derek White's been a great defender. He's, in my opinion, one of the top 3 perimeter defenders in this league. I think Drew Holiday's the best one in this league, and I was pretty surprised about that adjustment considering what Drew Holiday did, but Joe Mazzulla decided to go with it. And not only did it work to perfection, but it also gave Drew Holiday not necessarily more rest, but will probably have a little bit more legs and a little bit more juice to go play defense. And also, Drew Holiday, instead of having to worry about guarding a guy like Kyrie Irving and using all of his energy on defense, he had probably the best offensive game of the season for him personally. This was Drew Holiday's probably best game all season. He was huge for the Celtics along with Jaylen Brown, getting offensive production, getting what was needed to be done on offense, considering the shooting struggles that the Celtics had in this particular basketball contest. Drew Holiday, if I'm not mistaken, he had 26, 27, 26 points. He shot 11 of 14 from the field. He 2 for 4 from the 3. Drew Holiday was very, very efficient, and you've got to give credit to his teammates, especially Jason Tatum, for setting him up to score for success. Because a lot of Drew Holiday shots, they weren't really the mid ranges; they were really wide open threes or right at the rim. But Drew Holiday found a way to score, and we didn't really see this all season for Drew Holiday. When discussing the Boston Celtics' potential flaws going into the postseason, potentials, what they need to do more in order to win this title, one of the things I said was Drew Holiday needs to revert back to the player he was in Milwaukee. And Drew Holiday in Milwaukee was arguably the second option. And I think he was the second option. Some people may argue Middleton, but I think for what Drew Holiday did both sides on the ball and who the Bucks gave the ball to at the end of the game, I think Drew Holiday was the second option on that basketball team. And we've seen Drew Holiday's capability on offense despite him getting up there in age. And he just didn't do that all regular season. Even though the Celtics were winning, he was playing his role. He was guarding the best player, dishing it off to Tatum and Brown. But when Jason Tatum has continued to struggle in this NBA Finals, someone else stepped up. And that man who stepped up is Drew Holiday. And that's the beauty of this Celtics team. They have so many options. They have 5 guys who arguably could be, at worst, the second best player on other teams. Yes, even Derek White on a bad team, you could call him a number 2 and a potential number 1 player. That's how good this 1 through 5 of the Boston Celtics are. And any given moment, in any given game, one of those five can go off, and that is what makes them so special, and that's what makes them so dominant and so hard to stop, because they have those five guys who can score the ball that efficiently. And the fact that Drew Holiday has continued to cut the slack a little bit off Jason Tatum and make up his scoring production, to be quite honest, it has been something that I was a little bit surprised about. I think even the Boston Celtics are a little bit surprised about it. It's just been one of those surprises in the NBA Finals that we didn't expect. And I said earlier in this finals, what role player is going to step up? What role player is going to really go and just shock everybody? And Drew Holiday, of course, he is not a role player. We know that for certain. The way Drew Holiday plays, he is not a role player. But he has been one of those guys who didn't really make his mark on the first or second round, had a really good conference finals, but we didn't expect him to play like this in the NBA Finals. And Drew Holiday has continued to be great for the Boston Celtics. Now I want to talk about Kristaps Porzingis. I'll get to his injury later. That has its own segment. But for what he did in this game, once again, he didn't have the scoring that he necessarily had in game one. He wasn't as great there. I think he only had 12 points in this contest. And part of the reason was because he got injured. He missed the last 6 minutes of the basketball game. That was part of it. But Porzingis, when he is in the game, is just a game changer for Boston. First of all, when he shoots those contested elbow jump shots, when he goes to the elbow, no matter who's guarding him, whether that's Kyrie Irving or Derrick Jones or Daniel Gafford, Derek Lively, it does not matter who. No matter if they contest, Porzingis is money from the elbow. He is automatic from that spot on the court, and it's really, really hard to guard, and it really stretches out the defense, because if Porzingis consistently hits jumpers, teams have to stretch out on Porzingis, because now you have that threat of Porzingis shooting and scoring the ball efficiently from the outside. And it's just a huge help for the Boston Celtics overall, even though he may not have the greatest offensive game, because, as I mentioned, he stretches out the Daniel Gaffords, he stretches out the Derek Lively's of the world, which opens up the opportunities for the rim. Like I said, Drew Holiday had a great game at the rim. Why is that? Because the big man and Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford are being stretched out because of Kristaps Porzingis. Jaylen Brown also had a great game at the rim. Boston is getting these easy opportunities at the basket because Porzingis is stretching those big men who Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford have played sensational defense at the rim all season long. And those two were game changers in the postseason, especially against OKC and Minnesota. Those two really stood out, and those two were huge reasons why the Dallas Mavericks are in this position today. And Kristaps Porzingis is essentially neutralizing what they do best on defense, which is guard at the rim. So that opens up a lot of opportunities for Boston. And I love Al Horford, Florida Gator. I love that man. But he's not the same player as Porzingis. Porzingis is an absolute game changer for the Celtics. He is why the Boston Celtics got 64 wins. Because to be quite honest, in the postseason, when they didn't have Porzingis, despite them losing only 2 games, and they were 12-2, that did not look like the same Celtics team that we saw in the regular season. There was opportunities, if the other 2 teams were healthy, for Boston to ultimately get upset. And the fact that Porzingis is just making an immediate impact despite being out for over 38 days, huge for Boston, has been an absolute game changer, as I mentioned. And at the end of the game, of course, Boston was really, really huge. And despite them necessarily not having the greatest of 3-point games, despite not necessarily having their best game, they played decent at the end of the stretch despite the loss of Porzingis. There were moments at the end of the game when Dallas cut it to 5. It's like, is the Mavericks going to come back? Are the Mavericks going to come back and win this basketball game? And then Derek White, after PJ Washington essentially has a layup opportunity, goes up with Jaylen Brown for more risk of contact and gets the block on PJ Washington. A huge block to stop Dallas's momentum, because Dallas got some momentum because of Porzingis being out and the rim being more open. More opportunities at the rim because Porzingis is a big threat at the rim defensively as well. Dallas took advantage of that, got some momentum to end the game. They cut it to 5. Now PJ Washington's attacking the rim, and Derek White out of nowhere blocks the shot. Yes, he may have gotten pushed, PJ Washington, by Jaylen Brown, and maybe even got slapped in the arm by Derek White, but they're not going to call that in that moment. I don't think if that was on the other side, they would have called it well. Was it a foul? Yes, but it was also an incredible play by Derek White to potentially save a Celtics win and to stop Dallas's momentum. Because trust me, if PJ Washington got to the line, hit those 2 free throws, or made that shot, Dallas would have been amped up. They would have had just one opportunity to get a stop and make this a very interesting basketball game. But instead, Derek White got the block. Celtics on the fast break. Jaylen Brown hits an easy shot to put the Celtics up 3 possessions, and that was that. So the Celtics, for how much we've criticized them, not really seeing what they can do down the stretch in the season and seeing what they've done in past seasons down the stretch and basically giving up games, not performing, for what they've done in the postseason against Indiana, especially considering that Indiana had 90% chances to win 3 of those games, and now this game against Dallas, finishing off a difficult Mavericks team. You've got to give credit to the Boston Celtics there. They have been elite in the clutch in this postseason, and that is something that we have raised about the Celtics because we really didn't see them in the clutch all season long. We haven't seen this Celtics team down the wire, and that's not the Celtics' fault. They've been dominating teams all season long. You can't say that's Boston's fault, but we haven't seen them have a true test down the stretch, and they have had that this postseason in particular as of late, and they have gotten their job done. They have done what they are supposed to do, but they, as I mentioned, they did not have a lot of opportunities of that because the Boston Celtics have really had this cakewalk to the finals. They've really had this easy run, and they've really had opportunities where they should have lost, and yet they found ways to win. And I'll give you 4 levels of concern here for Boston. Number 1, they finished 10 of 39 from the 3-point line. Concerning. This is one of those games where if you're the Mavericks, you have to win. But the Celtics, this is about Boston right now. The fact that they shot that terrible from the 3. They were awful from the 3, especially in the first half and most of the third quarter. If I'm not mistaken, they were 25% from the whole game, which is god-awful. But in the third quarter, I think at one point, they were 4 of 24. They only hit 4 3-pointers halfway through the third quarter. That is how bad Boston was shooting from the 3. This was one of those games where this is it's a bad shooting game. This is Missoula ball. You live and you die by the 3. And this was a game where the Celtics were dying by the 3, and they should have lost. And yet they won. I think part of the reason why, which helped them a little bit, was they did, at the end of the day, get their 3-point shot going at the clutch when it ultimately mattered. And 2 threes that stand out in particular to me were 2 really desperation threes that gave the Celtics a 6-point swing. Number 1, you had the Peyton Pritchard 3 to end the third quarter when Boston was up 7. Boston was only up 6 at that point. Peyton Pritchard shoots the 3 from essentially the logo, banks it in, a big blow for Dallas. And considering how close it was down the stretch, you look back at a 3-pointer like that, that's a game changer. That completely changes what is the state of the game. And then you also had a 3, if I'm not mistaken, with 7 minutes and 30 seconds to go left in the fourth quarter. Derek White, essentially the shot clock's winding down, just has to throw one up there and just swooshes the 3-point shot. That's another 3 where it's like he just hit the shot. And yes, Boston was due for some lucky 3s considering how good they are shooting the ball from the 3-point line. and they didn't have really that great game. They were due for some 3-point shots to at least go down. And it did go down, and those two were brutal for Dallas because when you look back at it, when you saw what Dallas did down the stretch, especially without Porzingis, if those 2 threes did not go down, this was a winnable game for the Dallas Mavericks despite their struggles as well. So this was those 2 threes in particular, they were huge. They were huge, huge 3-pointers that completely changed the momentum of the basketball game. Next, Jason Tatum. I mean, my God. I know he has played great passing the ball, setting guys up. That's great. He's doing that part of the game. He is being a distributor. But Jason Tatum has yet to found his scoring ability. And you know what this reminds me of a little bit? Jason Tatum's performance reminds me of LeBron James in the 2011 finals, except the fact that the Celtics are actually somehow finding ways to win this series, to win this basketball. They are finding ways to win basketball games, and I just don't understand how they are doing it. This performance by Jason Tatum is historically bad for a superstar in the finals. If the Celtics were down 2-0 or this series was tied, you know how much Jason Tatum would be hammered right now? Jason Tatum has done nothing to help the Celtics. 6 of 22. That is terrible. The last game, he was terrible. Tatum missing threes he would normally make, missing shots at the basket, really just not doing what he's supposed to do. He had 0 points to end the first. I think he only had 4 points going into the locker room at halftime. Yes, Jason Tatum got it going a little bit in the second half, attacking the rim because Porzingis stretched out the defenders in Lively and Gafford. But overall, this has been a terrible finals for Jason Tatum, and yet the Celtics are still winning games. And give credit where credit is due to Boston, because they have such a great team by Jason Tatum. They surround Tatum with such a great team where he can have bad performances. And not only can he have bad performances, he doesn't necessarily have to be the best player in the series, which is something that I said needed to happen. I thought Jason Tatum needed to be the best player in this series in order for the Celtics to win this NBA title. And I was wrong. And we will get into who actually is the best player in the series in a couple of segments. But that is something I was wrong about. And Bob Meyer said it on ESPN. The finals MVP of this series is Brad Stevens, the Celtics president of basketball ops, the guy who built this roster. He turned Marcus Smart into Kristaps Porzingis and 2 first-round picks. He turned in Robert Williams and Malcolm Brogdon and a couple of firsts. One of the first that was traded to them in the Porzingis trade. So really only 1 first into Kristaps Porzingis. Drew Holiday. He basically turned Marcus Smart, 1 first, Robert Williams, and Malcolm Brogdon into Kristaps Porzingis and Drew Holiday. That is ridiculous. And those players surrounding Jason Tatum, all 4 of them in Porzingis, Holiday, White, and Jaylen Brown, they can all be the best player in an individual game. And that is the special beauty of the Celtics. And Jason Tatum is lucky he has the team that is surrounding him at this current state, because he is playing in a historically bad finals performance for what is supposed to be a superstar. This man was on the All-NBA first team. This man is supposed to be a top 5 player in the world, and he has not shown it so far in the finals. This game we saw in Game 2 against the Heat. We saw it Game 2 against the Cavs. We've seen it all season long. The Boston Celtics, in the games that they lose, they struggle from 3. They live or die by the 3. And the fact that they were that awful from the 3-point line, they had stupid turnovers. They were playing one of those games where Boston was beating themselves. they still won this game, and that, if you're the Dallas Mavericks, is concerning because you just blew a major, and when I mean major, I mean game-changing opportunity to steal home court, go back to Dallas, be up, potentially be up 2-1 after 3 games, have the opportunity to go up 2-1, have the opportunity, if you protect home court, to go up 3-1. Dallas had this, and they blew it. Yes, Boston found ways to get it done in the stretch. Yes, players stepped up for Jason Tatum. But Dallas, if you have to win this basketball game. Luka got off to an amazing start. Luka had 20 points, if I'm not mistaken, like in the halfway point of the second quarter, maybe even the first quarter. Luka Doncic was on a heater to start the game, and he was flat out carrying the Dallas Mavericks the whole game, but particularly in the first quarter, just setting his tone, setting his mark in this basketball game. It was ridiculous. I have never seen an individual carry like Luka Doncic did in that first period. It was ridiculous, and the Mavericks found their way up by 5 points to end that first period. And the Mavs did look like the more aggressive team early. They were doing great in the first quarter, but for some reason, for the rest of the game, they just went quiet. They just were not there, and they just went away from the moment. And in the first quarter, actually, going back there, even though they were up 5, it felt like they had opportunities to go and make a run, to go and really open this game up, push it to 15, push it to 20. Dallas had those opportunities. They had wide open looks, and looks that they were not hitting. And they could have really made this a 15, 20-point game after the first quarter. And Dallas could not take advantage of it. And the Celtics, really, their first 10, 12 points of the basketball game, they were all layups. They were all defensive breakdowns by the Mavericks. I've just never seen Dallas, especially in this postseason, blow a game like this. Ever since the trade deadline, the Mavericks have arguably been, of course, up there with the Celtics as one of the best teams. And this is something you just do not expect out of the Mavericks. And when we hope for a great NBA Finals series, a 6-7 game series, we may not get it, because that was the game where Dallas could have made this series interesting. And again, with the role players, they were not doing their job. Max Akliba, someone who I said after game 1, someone who I thought needed to play much better for the Mavericks. He is someone who can stretch the floor for Dallas, open up opportunities for the rim for PJ Washington, for Derrick Jones Jr., for Kyrie Irving. And he did that. But when the when the Celtics decided to collapse at the rim because they didn't want to get easy opportunities at the rim, Kleber was getting wide open 3-point opportunities. He missed them all. I don't even think Max Kleber hit 1 3 in this basketball game. No, he missed 3 3-pointers. Maybe one was on the line. It said he missed 2, but I think one of them was on the line. He missed 3 essentially wide open 3-point shots. And those shots could have extended the lead for Dallas. And he did not hit them. He continued to struggle. He did not score a single point in this game, despite all 4 of his shots by analytics being wide open shots. And then another thing with the Mavericks, their free throw shooting has been awful, historically awful. The whole postseason, the Dallas Mavericks have been terrible from the free throw line. Whether that was Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, or anybody else on the team, the Mavericks have been horrible. The Boston Celtics, they hit 19 of their 20 free throws, the exception of Jason Tatum missing 1 free throw. The Dallas Mavericks, They shot 16 of 24, and at one point they were under 40% from the free throw line because they were that bad. These are points that you have to get against a Celtics team that is elite offensively. You need to get the free ones. You need to have every single advantage because the Celtics are so good. You need to take care of the opportunities that are given to you. Yes, you can miss 2 or 3. I'm not saying you have to be perfect, but 8 missed free throws when this was a 7-point loss and when this game was pretty much close the entire time. That's costly. If you hit 7 more free throws, this game is tied. And maybe you won the game, depending on how the rest of the basketball game follows after that. The Mavericks had a major opportunity, and the free throws have killed them all postseason long. I remember Game 4 against the Thunder. Didn't help then. Game 4 against the Timberwolves wasn't great there either. And even going back to the Clippers series, they were not great. The Mavericks have to hit free throws. It's just free points that you have to get. And when you're trying to beat a historically dominant team in the Boston Celtics, you need to hit the free ones. They are called free throws for a reason. Those are free points that you earned because you attacked the rim and you drew fouls. You have to hit those. And number 3, the Mavericks have been awful from the three-point line. For how bad Boston was from the 3, the Mavericks were even worse from the three-point line. They were 6 of 26. And the crazier part, the guy who carried them the whole time, Luka Doncic, he hit 4 of those threes. So really, the rest of the Mavericks team, other than Doncic, was 2 of 17 from the three-point line. I will say that again. 2 of 17 from the three-point line. 11%. They were worse than the Celtics. For how bad the Celtics shot the ball, the Mavericks were worse. And when the Celtics shoot the ball that bad and you have the opportunity to win the game, you have wide open threes. You have good opportunities because Luka's getting double teamed when he attacks down the hill and he's setting up and he's finding guys wide open from the three-point line. This has nothing to do with Luka Doncic. And you've got to give credit for Luka going out there and doing what he did despite his injury. This has nothing to do with Luka. Luka was making the perfect pass to set up Mavericks players wide open from the three-point line. They could not hit it, whether that was Kleba, as I mentioned earlier, Josh Green, even P.J. Washington was struggling, Derek Jones, everybody, even Kyrie Irving, who we'll get into in a second. All of them were struggling from 3. And in a game that you must have, a game that you must win, and a game that you had a major opportunity to win. 11% other than Doncic? Really? I don't know what's happening to Dallas because we saw them hit these threes in the earlier series. That's why they got to the NBA Finals, because of guys like P.J. Washington, Derek Jones Jr., Josh Green. Those guys hitting three-point shots. That's the reason why they're here in the first place. What happened? Why are they not hitting them now? It's the same exact shots. Are they not built for the moment? Because that's the only thing I can see. Because it's been the same opportunities, just like the other series, and they are just not hitting them. Another reason why the Mavericks blew this game, their bench. The Mavericks bench, the bench that consisted of Max Kleba, Derek Lively, Josh Green, Dante Exum, Jaden Hardy, a combined 9 points. The Mavericks got nothing from their bench. The Mavericks bench hit 1 3-pointer. They hit 3 field goals. The Mavericks bench was awful. 2 of the guys didn't score a point. Nobody on that Mavericks bench scored over 4 points. The Mavericks need help. And because of Kyrie Irving not playing great, and Luka Doncic basically having to carry this team on his back despite his injuries. The Mavericks need help. Luka Doncic needs help. You have to get help from somewhere. And again, just like PJ Washington, Jarrett Jones, these guys at the bench, at least one of them were having a great games. And remember, the role players, somebody has to step up. One role player who hasn't done really a lot in the postseason, they have to step up in order to win a title. That's how it works every single year. That hasn't happened for Dallas. Tim Hardaway hasn't had a revival from the bench. Jaden Hardy hasn't done anything. Dante Exum, he had opportunities to score, and he had opportunities to show what he did in the regular season and convert it here to the NBA Finals. He didn't do any of that. You have to play better if you're the bench. Derek Lively, who has been arguably the third most impactful player for the Mavericks because what he's done on defense, he has been a liability on defense. And yes, part of that is because Porzingis is stretching him out. But Derek Lively has just been terrible. He's not getting the rebounds he normally gets. He's not making the impact defensively that he normally has. Derek Lively is having an awful series for someone that we thought could potentially be a huge piece to the puzzle of why the Mavericks could have potentially won this NBA title. And they're still in it, of course. But Derek Lively got to show up. And yes, maybe the moment's too big. He's a rookie. He is a rookie, and there's a lot of expectations because the Mavericks do not have necessarily the greatest supporting cast that we thought they actually had. There are a lot of expectations, but you've got to live up to them if you want to win an NBA championship. And finally, Kyrie Irving. Oh boy. Again, Kyrie Irving did not show up once again. When we think of why the Dallas Mavericks have made the finals, you ponder the question, why did the Mavericks make the finals? Two players, Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving. Not one, not Luka Doncic, not just Luka. Two players, Luka and Kyrie Irving. Well, in this series, it's only been Luka. Kyrie has been a no-show, and it is surprising because Kyrie is the only one with championship experience. I don't know what's wrong with him. I don't think it's the Boston crowd, even though Boston's been giving it to him because obviously we know what he did with the Celtics, leaving them. But it's not that. He's just struggling. And for a team that relies so heavily on their two best players to score the basketball, it is nearly impossible to expect the Mavericks to win games if Kyrie Irving's only putting up 16 points, 12 points. The Mavericks are not going to win basketball games. 7 of 18, 0 for 3 from the three-point line. What can you expect? What are you going to expect? Luka and Kyrie nearly average 70 on the court together. You just cannot expect Kyrie Irving to put up 16 points and to win. Kyrie needs to be better, flat out. And if he was better and he played better than he did in game one, they would have won this game easily. Easily. No questions asked. The Mavericks have beaten themselves. This was a game. Yes, the Celtics played their A game in game one, but this was the game. This was the opportunity for them to get in this series. And the fact that the bench did nothing. They missed a lot of free throws. Even Luka Doncic didn't play great down the stretch. And Kyrie Irving has continued to struggle. The Dallas Mavericks are now in this position where game 3 is a must win. And if they don't win that, we know the stats. They're not winning this series. So Kyrie Irving's going to have to go into Dallas. The role players who should play better at home are going to have to go into Dallas and play the game of their lives because their season is on the line. Wednesday night, it's do or die for the Mavericks. Do they want to make this a series or not? Because Luka has been the only one who has consistently showed up, maybe with the exception of PJ Washington a little bit. But it's been Luka or bust, and Luka's not even 100%. Someone has got to help this man out. That's the reason why they're here. They have to continue doing what they did to get to this position. So the Mavericks are gonna have to find ways to win. And the way they've looked so far, you just don't know. But let's go on to a claim that Jason Kidd made in this series. A claim that controversial, stirring up tension, because he said this before Game 2. He said this Game 2 Media Day Saturday. Jason Kidd claimed in his press conference that Jaylen Brown was the best player of the Celtics. I don't know if this was a move to frustrate Jason Tatum. Jaylen Brown tried to make some tension going on there. I don't know what kind of a move that was for Jason Kidd. But it does ponder the question, is Jaylen Brown the best player for the Celtics? Can we actually come to the realization that Jaylen Brown very well may be the best player on this basketball team? Well, yes. Yes. Jason Tatum has been a no-show in the finals. He has struggled in this postseason. While Jaylen Brown has brought it every game, he may have not had that 40-point performance, but he has brought it every single game, and he has brought it on both ends of the court. Scoring, getting to the rim, attacking the rim, beating his defender. Jaylen Brown has done that consistently. And Jaylen Brown also has handled the ball particularly well. Remember that we criticized Jaylen Brown last year, especially in that Miami game, Game 7, where he had 7 turnovers. He hasn't had those struggles so far in this postseason. He really hasn't. He has been a much better guard. Really, he has been sensationally better. And he has been also more improved defensively as well. Jaylen Brown has made an impact on both sides. He has been the primary defender on Luka Doncic. Jaylen Brown, for how good Luka Doncic has performed in the first, second, and third quarter, Luka Doncic has not had great fourth quarters in this series. And that's all you can ask for. Stop Luka in the fourth quarter. Missoula doesn't care. The Celtics don't care if Luka Doncic has 30, 40-point first through third quarters. He cares if Luka and Kyrie are stopped in the fourth quarter. And that is exactly what Jaylen Brown has been doing. He has done that. He has stopped the best player when it has mattered most. He has been the best player on offense, and he has been one of the 2 best players on defense for the Boston Celtics in this series. And there was a reason why he won Eastern Conference Finals MVP. It wasn't all about that jump shot that saved them Game 1. It was not. It was because of his impact on both sides, getting to the rim, being a consistent scorer. When I talk about someone who's great, I talk about consistency, someone who brings it every single night. And I love Jason Tatum. I love what he's done. And I'm not trying to be a Jason Tatum hater here. But Jaylen Brown has brought it every day. Tatum has not. We have seen it in the postseason, past postseasons. We've seen Tatum be inconsistent. Jaylen Brown has been the most consistent player. And you could even make the case in the series that Jason Tatum's not even the second best player. Look at what Jrue Holiday has done. He has revived himself on offense. He has been one of the best scorers for Boston. He's been the one who's been picking up the slack for Jason Tatum. Jrue Holiday right now is a little bit behind Jaylen Brown, in my opinion, for Finals MVP. I'm not saying Jrue Holiday is better than Jason Tatum for this team. I'm saying Jaylen Brown is. But Jrue Holiday in this series has been better. And Jrue Holiday, you've got to give the man a lot of credit for what he has done. Jason Tatum, who I thought needed to be the best player, I've been flat out wrong. Jaylen Brown is the best player on this team. And Jaylen Brown has needs to be the best player on this team to win a title. I thought it was supposed to be Jason Tatum because I've seen what he's done in the past. I've seen the great performances he had, which is something that Jaylen Brown has not done. He has not had 50 points in a game 7. He has not saved the Boston Celtics in a game 6 situation on the road before. That was Jason Tatum. But bringing it consistently is something that I look at when I think of best player. No matter what, whether it's at home, whether on the road, no matter the situation, you bring it every single game. And that is something I cannot say Jason Tatum has done, unlike Jaylen Brown. So I'm going to go with Jaylen Brown is the best player. And he has a point. Even Drew Holiday said, I agree with it. He knows what he's talking about. I think at the end of the day, we may have to reevaluate who is the best player. And a lot of people were criticizing Jaylen Brown for the contract he got this offseason. A lot of money considering the performance he had on Game 7. And maybe he takes a step back because he just got his money. He just got paid. Well, Jaylen Brown has not taken a step back. He has elevated his game, and he has been the reason why the Celtics have won these close games, been the reason why the Celtics are up 2-0 in the NBA Finals. It's been Jaylen Brown along with Drew Holiday and the impact of Porzingis. Tatum has just not been great this postseason, and reevaluating the Celtics, Jaylen Brown looks to me like the best player. That's just me. Now let's move on to the Dallas Mavericks once again. People are wondering, are the Mavericks done? Is this series over for the Dallas Mavericks? Well, I'll tell you this. I think it is. Because once again, that was a game 2 where the Dallas Mavericks should have won. They really, honestly, there is no excuse, no reason why the Dallas Mavericks shouldn't have won that game. And the fact that they blew that game, a game that they had to win, it's over. The Boston Celtics are undefeated on the road. I'm not saying they're going to win both games in Dallas, but there's a good chance they're going to win one. A good chance. And if you go up 3-1 back to Boston, it's over. It is over. The Boston Celtics will win the 2024 NBA title if they go up 3-1. They could sweep them. I don't think they're going to sweep them because I think the Mavericks have to get at least one good game out of Kyrie Irving in this series, at least one with Luka Doncic being great as well. But this was a game that the Mavericks had to have because we know how good Boston is on the road, and we know Boston struggles at home. The Mavericks had to get one of these first two. I don't think now there is a chance the Mavericks can win this series. I'd be shocked if Boston broke down. And if Boston did, we would be talking about it for a very long time. But I just don't see the Mavericks winning 4 out of the last 5 games in this series. That is a tough and tall task to do against the Boston Celtics. I could see 3 or 5 if it's 1-1. But 4 or 5, considering still that 2 of those games are in Boston, that's just not an easy task to do if you're the Dallas Mavericks. And the way they've been playing, the way that they have shown me that they're not ready for this moment, I cannot say in my mind that the Mavericks are going to win this series. It would be one of the biggest turnarounds in NBA Finals history. Maybe the biggest. I just don't see it happening. I love Dallas. I've loved what they've done. But this Boston Celtics team really has broke them down. Give credit to the Celtics. Again, Mavericks have done it to themselves as well, but Boston has broken them down a little bit. It's been a little bit of both, but the Mavericks just do not look ready for the moment, and I just don't see a way they win 4 out of the last 5 games. Now, there is the question, though, of Kristaps Porzingis, which could be a game changer this series. Could be a game changer. I still think the Mavericks are done, despite this, with Porzingis being injured here. Because Porzingis, with 6 minutes to go in the basketball game, had a right leg injury. He was limping. Mavericks got 2 easy buckets on him because they attacked him. Joe Mazzulla called a timeout with 4:45 to go, and Porzingis was out the rest of the game. Horford went in for him. Now, is this a concern Yes, it is a concern. Do I still think Boston's going to win the series? Absolutely. But could Dallas mess around here and get 2 games if we know Porzingis is not 100% out there? Absolutely. Absolutely. Because Porzingis' impact has been unmatched. We see what he has done offensively. He has stretched the big guys out. He has stretched Derek Lively, Daniel Gafford out. And he's not only hitting the shots on them, he's not only getting them into foul trouble, he is giving the opportunities for Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Drew Holiday to go to the rim. That's why Drew Holiday has been so great this final scoring, because he's had easy opportunities at the rim. Jaylen Brown, easy opportunities at the rim. When Tatum was trying to get going in game 2, he got to the rim because there was no big man to stop him. He just had to beat his defender, which for Jason Tatum, it's not that difficult. And defensively, Kristaps Porzingis provides them a huge body, and people do not want to go to the rim on him. Porzingis has been the most impactful player for the Celtics in the series. He has been a game changer. If the Celtics did not have Porzingis in game 2, they wouldn't have won. They would have not won. Yes, Porzingis didn't have a great game offensively, huge impact defensively. Stretches the guys out. I love Al Horford again. I'll say it. Al Horford, my guy. He's not Porzingis. Porzingis is a different beast, a different animal, and he is called the unicorn for the reason. He is the reason why the Celtics got 64 wins. He's the reason why the Celtics were up 20 in over 42 of their basketball games. That was Porzingis, because Drew Holiday didn't have a great regular season. That was mostly Kristaps Porzingis. He has been the third best player for the Celtics all season long. There is no argument, no debates about that. Porzingis is a huge, huge reason why the Celtics are in this position. And you look back at the Pacers series, Pacers easily got to the rim without Porzingis. And they should have won those games, of course. They didn't. Cavaliers, Evan Mobley was having great games. Why is that? Why did Evan Mobley have great games? Because Porzingis was not in the lineup. That's why. You have to look at it not only from, oh, this team should have won, but the fact that Porzingis was out as well was a huge reason, because without him on the court, it opens up the floor for the other teams. Without Porzingis on the court, I was looking at the minutes that Porzingis was out. The Mavericks attacked the rim. Derek Jones and PJ Washington were like, yep, this is our time to go to the rim. This is our time to attack. And they did perfectly. Kyrie Irving got a little bit of his scoring because of when Al Horford was out. Al Horford was in and Porzingis was out. If I'm not mistaken, I think Kyrie Irving scored over half his points with Porzingis being off the floor at the rim, because Kyrie Irving, that's the only thing he could really get going, shots at the rim. Porzingis is just a major factor for the Celtics, and this could be a game changer. This could give Gafford, Derek Lively more opportunities to score. This could give Kyrie Irving, this could give everyone on the Mavericks more opportunities to score. And when you're only scoring 98, 80-something points in the NBA Finals against a dominant Celtics offense, you're going to need more scoring. And this is a way, if Porzingis is out, for the Mavericks to get that indeed. So this may be very important for the Mavericks to take advantage of Porzingis. Even if he goes out there, may not be 100%, may be able to beat him off the dribble. The Mavericks will have to evaluate and look at how Porzingis is at the start of Game 3, because that could be huge, because Porzingis is that impactful for the Celtics. And finally, today, I tried to hold this podcast as late as I possibly could, but Dan Hurley has not made his decision yet. And his decision, according to Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN, is happening today. Probably when you watch this podcast, Dan Hurley will have made his decision. Is he going to stay with UConn? Try to win the three-peat with the UConn Huskies, which is something that I wouldn't be mad at him for doing. I don't think a lot of people would be mad at him for doing. Or take the Lakers job offer. He's really intrigued, according to Woj, with the Lakers, but he wants to build at UConn. It's a 50-50 decision for him. And I understand it's tough, because you've built this great program at UConn, but at the end of the day, you're getting a lot of money here in LA, and they're giving you a great opportunity. So it's a tough decision. If I was Dan Hurley, though, not to be NBA biased, of course, because this is an NBA podcast, I would go to the Lakers. For one, you are a great builder. You can build this team to win a title and you can be around for a while. The Lakers clearly have showed that they want you to be around for a while, which is something that's great. They've also given you more money. You're getting more money with the Lakers just by a financial aspect. And number three, worst case scenario, you do get fired. College, no matter what program it is, the biggest program in college basketball will say, Dan Hurley, lead my team, lead my program. Worst case scenario, he gets fired, he gets hired to a blue blood in college basketball. That is the worst case scenario. He will just go back right back to where he is. I think he should take it because I think he has the opportunity to be a great NBA coach to revive this Lakers team while getting paid more money at the same time to do it. This will be a tough decision for Hurley, as I mentioned. This is not easy. Dan Hurley has done a lot of great things at UConn. Really built that program back to where it was in 2014. Really has. But I think he can really build and maximize that Lakers roster with Austin Reeves, Max Christie, Rui Hachimura, Jared Vanderbilt, and build around Anthony Davis, which is something that the Lakers need to look at because I love LeBron. We all love LeBron. He's out of the league in 2 years. Dan Hurley is the guy, if you're the Lakers, who can build around Anthony Davis. He'll incorporate LeBron and they'll try to win, of course, this season coming up. But this is about Anthony Davis, and I think this would be a win-win situation if Dan Hurley were to go to the Lakers. Wouldn't be mad if he stayed, but of course, for both sides of here, for what Dan Hurley has the opportunity of doing, for what is the worst case scenario, Dan Hurley should absolutely take the Los Angeles Lakers job. And of course, I could be absolutely wrong, and this could be pointless by the time you're watching this, but we will find out, and I will find out as soon as possible what Dan Hurley is going to decide what to do. And I think that is all the time we have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. Remember, please leave a like and subscribe. Follow me on Instagram at take_your_shot_podcast_. That's at take_your_shot_podcast_. And tell me how you would have taken your shots on my takes. That's all my shots for the day, folks. Thank you so much. Wednesday, we will preview Game 3, have some more storylines for you, and potentially break the Dan Hurley news and see where Dan Hurley goes. We're going to talk about all of that on Wednesday's episode. We will see you then. Remember, leave a like and subscribe, and peace.